My why is because I believe every single person deserves to be heard. That every single person has greatness within them.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Master Your Life. I'm Kate McKay. I'm super glad that you're joining me again today. And today, drum roll for the one, the only, the Dan Storey. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Kate. I'm glad there's only one of me. Can you imagine if there's more than one of me? This world would be crazy.
I know. You guys would be fighting with swords. Speaking of swords, just a little bit about Dan, and we're going to get right on into it, as I say. Dan's an author, he's an athlete, he's a coach and trainer, and he's also a champion. We're going to just toot your horn a little bit. You just competed and won the title of Mr. Eastern INBA as a physique competitor what was that? A week and a half ago, 2 weeks?
It feels like yesterday, but also 2 weeks ago. There's been a lot of meals in there, but also a lot of workouts since. So yeah, I think a couple of weeks ago.
That's so awesome. And what's next for you? If you could just fill in the audience, because, you went in and you never know. Like, that's the thing, right? Because I love that we share this, Dan, but you never know how it's going to go. The judging is incredibly subjective, no matter what they say. I mean, obviously the best physique most often wins, but then the rest after that is generally just, I would say, a shit show, because everyone's all like, I should have won, he should have won. It's like, whatever. This is subjective when we do it for other things. But what's next for you, Dan?
I was 90% happy on the day. So the fact that I won is good. I came in probably slightly above 90%, but I'll take it. This was supposed to be a warm-up show. I was supposed to be going to Phoenix in a week or so as my main competition, which I thought was when I would be ready. But as I won it, then I don't need to go to Phoenix because I've qualified for the natural Mr. Olympia in Vegas in the beginning of November. So I know the big guys are up on stage in a couple of days, but us natural guys have got a few more weeks to wait.
Yeah, the healthy and natural, right? I mean, if you don't mind explaining to the audience a little bit about the sport from your end. I compete in an organization, I've competed in a bunch. Some of them were drug tested, some of them not. And there is some that are natural and some that are not. So if you could just explain a little bit from your end, your sport specific, and how it's different.
So we all do the same thing, right? The big guys, the really big guys, and us not so big guys. And the question is, how much additional help do we want? And I have no judgment. Like, if I was brave enough or crazy enough, I had access to it, and at a different point in my life, then maybe I would have taken some performance enhancing drugs, because there's an element of wanting to see the best at their best, regardless of how they got there, which is why we kind of gravitate to things like the Olympics. So I love these guys, and I think they do some phenomenal things, and what they're able to craft with their body is simply, you were just saying it a moment ago, a work of art, right? It's impressive what they're able to do, and they push themselves to limits that no mere mortal can get to. I do as much as I can of that, just without the performing enhancing drugs. So it means it's harder for me to create testosterone to make my muscles grow. I don't quite get the same recovery level because I haven't got the kind of peptides and things that they've got access to. So I had to do it on a natural basis, not from a judgment perspective. Some people draw the line, but for me, the reason I choose to do it naturally, is I just want to be a bit healthier. Like, I know a lot of the guys from the kind of performance enhancing realm, they get their blood work done. Now it's a lot more, I'd say, safe, but they're able to interact with their kind of health markers a lot faster. If you look back in the past, kind of when we were growing up, remember the Flex magazines, did you see these amazingly ripped bodybuilders, and then 2 weeks later, it's like they've had a heart condition or something like that. You're like, wow. So I think the technology and the health technology has come on a long way to allow us to be healthier in that space. But I'm also a dad, a husband, a son, a brother, all those kind of things. I want to stick around for a little while and see that. And, just so longevity is important for me.
That's so true. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I feel the same way about, I can't judge the enhancement. I mean, it's like they say historically that any kind of enhancement is first tested like on racehorses, and then it's bodybuilders, and then it's the general population. Yeah. Because the bottom line is that you'd be very surprised how many men and women are on hormone replacements.
Yep.
And I just want to say this as very, very important. I'm on bioidentical hormones, tested from my doctor as, because I'm 60. So post-menopausal, I'm not going to be able to maintain the healthiest of tissues. And I'm not just talking muscles. And I think that that's a very important, is that we can't, with just diet and exercise, necessarily protect our joints, protect our brain health and all of that. And now really science is on our side, that muscles are so important for brain health and longevity. It's just, it's the mitochondria are built in the muscle. I mean, how can that not be? Our energy packs are built in muscle. So
there's some amazing scientists doing aging work or anti-aging work and researching that. And, men, and I can only speak from a men's perspective, but men's natural testosterone goes down as we get older. It happens. It contributes to aging, contributes to balding, but on a cellular level, right? So testosterone impacts, I think it's the telomeres, which is responsible for cell division and cell multiplication. And these things shorten over time. So actually, by adding in testosterone into the body, we can actually keep telomere length, which means that we're staying healthier for longer at a cellular level. So whether you do it from a performance enhancing perspective, I still think there's some application for kind of later on testosterone supplementation, but purely from a health thing. So it's something I want to look at. The biohack is a really interesting space, but for now, I'm not allowed to do any of that. So I'll have to wait.
No, exactly. You get tested. So talk a little bit about your class in the sport, because I think it's important. And you guys, this is all fascinating stuff, because you'd be surprised how many organizations there are, but also the different types of physiques that you can enter your body into based on your genetics, which is really cool. So if you don't mind sharing what you do, that would be really helpful.
The men's side is a lot easier. There's only 3. There's a couple of others. Like I found this beach body the other day. I don't know what that is, but we'll go with it. But imagine there's 3. There's what most people will see as the traditional bodybuilder, which is the open class, which is make your muscles as big as you possibly can, and just stand there, shorts, the giant muscles, big as you can, but still good proportion. I think we've seen evolution. I remember, back in the day, you had kind of the Serge Haney, like that kind of very round Serge Olivier Lee Haney, the round fullness of muscles. Then you went through the Dorian Yates phase, which was just like, oh my god, there's a slab of meat on there. And then you had like the Ronnie phase, which was somehow both, like it's giant and it's symmetrical, and you're just thinking, how do you do that? And that's kind of the open class. Those guys are just getting bigger and bigger. But if you look at someone like Derek is kind of, the size has come down in terms of height, but the volume, like this guy takes up like so much space. But again, still shape, symmetry, definition is phenomenal. Even ab control, which used to not be a thing in the open guys, but they've got really good abs. It's like, how do you do this? Then you have what would be called classic physique, which is, if you imagine all the Roman statues. Now, we live in New York, so we've been to the Met Museum a few times. There's one wing you go through, there's all the statues, and they're all the perfect symmetrical proportional shape. Like you look at the statue of David, you think, yes. And apparently for David, his biceps are the same size as his calves. I think that's how you know it. Or the shoulder width is proportional to weight by like 1.4 or something along those lines. There's a certain shape and symmetry to classic, which you want a little bit of size, but you don't need to be massive. And it's about movement. And the one thing I do love about classic is the movement patterns, their posing routines, how artful they are. If you remember, like back in the day, and I've got the DVD over there, I'm going to have to watch it later just from a motivation. But the beginning of Pumping Iron, where Franco Columbu and Arnold are both in the ballerina studio. And then it's not just about the poses, it's about the movement between the poses. And these guys are able to turn the human body into some form of work of art. And some of the posing that goes on in classic is some of the finest movement I think you can see from a bodybuilder, which is cool. Then you have my class, which is physique. And if we come down again in size, we're supposed to be the ones that look naturally toned. We kind of imagine, we wear shorts for the first bit, so we don't have to get our legs judged, which makes life a lot easier, trust me. But we still have to have incredible ab control. The thing for physique is it's a lot more to do with taper, a lot more to do with narrow waist, wide shoulders, big flaring lats, all of those kind of aspects, and stand there super tense, but also looking natural. It's still not something, and remember to smile. This is the thing, my coach shouts, smile. I'm like, damn it. It's supposed to look naturally controlled. So all of them have different challenges. I think I'm on the heavier side for physique. I do like the look of classic, and that is something that I'm toying with maybe one day. But for right now, given where I am, physique is good for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. In the women's, they have, as you said, a little bit more broad base. And there also is an evolution in the sport. When I first started lifting weights, women weren't in the gym. It was like they were using the shaky machines. And so in the early 80s, really when I started lifting, it was, I was the only girl in bodybuilding gyms,
Yep.
but this felt like, I don't know why, but it just felt like the right place for me. I liked weights. It calmed me down. There was something about it. And so when did you first start? I mean, we have so many things to talk about. We have your books and such, but what was your journey into fitness? Because I think that it's an important part of who you are and the things that you talk about, because much of the work that obviously you do with your books is the psychology of transformation, and the body is so symbolic to that.
Yeah, body and mind, we'll get into both of those aspects, but they're so similar. Like what you do to the body, what you do to the mind, the reaction is the same. We just call it different names. I remember the first time I went to the gym. I really do. I remember as a kid, I played football. I played football later, but let's call it soccer for now. And I remember playing a lot as a kid. I must have been about 14 years old. And I remember we were sitting at home and watching TV, and my dad just did these random things. He just like took his hand and went, bam, and slammed it on my thigh and squeezed it as hard as he can, like right in between the muscle, like just to wind me up. And he's like, oh, yeah, you've got such strong legs, like really good. Then he takes his hand and he put it around my arm, all the way around, just like these fingers. And he's like, you got skinny arms. And I was like, I don't know. It wasn't teasing. It wasn't anything mean, but I'm like, oh yeah, no, I have. And at the time I was at school, so I must have been, like I said, about 14, 15. And we had we had the opportunity to do fitness that was a bit more flexible. So some of us actually end up choosing to go to the gym. I was one of those people. There's probably maybe one other person because I said, hey, do you want to come with me? But I started to go to the gym and I had no idea what I was doing at the time. This was back in the day when you had kind of every machine was a pec deck. You had that decline sit-up bench. You remember the one where you had to keep racking it up and stuff and had like the triangles for the legs? It was the same in every gym. It was brilliant. And it was also at the time when protein shakes existed. They came in 3 flavors, all of which tasted like chalk. It was brilliant. It was just like that. Yeah, you had to, now you can shake it and it mixes. Back in the day, you had to shake it, mix it, eat it, and then still chew it. It was so that was good fun. But yeah, I remember starting to lift then. And I didn't really know what I did, but I knew it helped. And the reason I knew is I can remember this one. I was never good at cross country or running like distance. I preferred sport, but after a couple of years of training, I remember going from almost last in cross country to being 6th in one race. And everyone was like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know, but I think it had something to do with me doing some legs in the gym. And I gradually put on size. I was able to go from kind of, not really competing at sport to competing in sport, captaining some of the school teams. Then when I got to university, being a decent athlete and being able to represent Great Britain, actually, American football. I did all right. And all this time I was training, and I was training to support sport. Like I said, I played Great Britain and semi-professional American football in Europe, which isn't a great level. We tried to play against the US and we just got beaten. So
it's so cool though.
It was very cool. And that is probably my favorite sport. And I love it. And I have a huge history with it. And yeah, it was always train. I don't think I ever stopped training. Even when you get injured, it's like, oh, you should take a rest. I'm like, no way, because I'll go crazy. And I remember like having times off and your head goes. I don't know why, but I need, like you say, it calms me down. So it's always been there. But a few years ago, like COVID hit, I stopped playing football. And I said to myself, I need a new challenge. I need a new challenge. And, it was a time where I couldn't really do anything. I had a new routine because I had a baby and a child. So I couldn't really go off and play football. Football froze for COVID. We ended up moving. And I said to myself, I want a challenge. And I tried Ironman for 5 minutes. And my body went, nope.
Yeah.
And I said to my little brother, I said, what about bodybuilding? What do you think? Because he'd been a bodybuilder, like 12, 15 years ago on the untested side. So he'd taken performance enhancing drugs. He said, don't do it. So why not? So because I know what you're like, you're going to get into it. And, it's hard work. And it's, as soon as you get into it, it's just a constant pursuit of something that you're never quite going to reach. I'm like, that sounds cool. Like,
sounds perfect.
Where do I sign? So yeah, so that was the start of that was the transition. So forever training strength since like 13, 14 years old. We've still got them at home, like the little metal weights that we used to have, like these 10-kilo dumbbells. It says 10 kilos, they're nowhere near 10 kilos. So ever since then, pretty much my entire life has been in gym.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting? And yet it's like the one consistent in the midst of so many other things, and I think a lot of times when people identify you, I'm sure you hear it a lot, like, wow, dude, you look so fit. And it's to this day, I'm still like, am I? Yeah. It's like, I just don't, from inside my life, in my own perspective, I'm like, I'm just me, right? And so you lose the perspective, but I hear it all the time. People assume I'm a fitness trainer. I'm not.
I was for a bit. I was for
Yeah.
a bit. I went to uni, I studied sports science and maths. I'm half
Yep.
jock, half geek. I can count press ups really well, apparently. And for a couple of years, I worked in fitness. And then I kind of went back to university, did a master's in sports science and nutrition, especially. I even lectured in nutrition, and I was a vegetarian at the time. How do you be a vegetarian athlete, vegan athlete? That was interesting. And a friend of mine gave me a CD, and it was about psychology and neuro-linguistic programming. And he said, "Hey, you should listen to this. I think it'll go really well." And that was when I fell in love with psychology. So
Yes.
I realized that, yeah, gym was fun, but you can make so much more of an impact by training people's brains that I kind of went and pivoted and kind of went over to that. But yeah.
So what was it about that resonated with you?
So I was a personal trainer. I remember one client, and this is when I was in England, and we were in Nottingham. I'd go and see him a couple of times a week, and I stood in a field, and I'd watch him run around his field, just watch, just encouraging him or something. But, we'd do some good programming. He was in good shape. I knew him from a sporting perspective, and he wanted to get to be more of an athlete. And I was back at university. I wanted to train with athletes. And it got to a point where I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, why are you trying to, so, I want to feel this, I want to feel that. And people think that movement and fitness is a route to feeling something. Whereas actually the brain says you can feel that right now. Like you want to feel more confident? Okay, feel more confident. Like do the things that make you feel more confident. It's a biological pattern that we can go through that allows us to think that way. And actually by hacking your brain, you can do that. And actually, if you unlock that, all the fitness stuff comes a lot easier. So it made me able to remove barriers, remove excuses, reasons for people doing it, reason for people making bad choices. We still make bad choices. I kind of studied that later on. But it's like, okay, well, how can we free our brain to do the things that we know we should do instead of making excuses and thinking about things and doubting ourselves and all that kind of aspect? So that's kind of where it kind of kicked in.
So you talk about the different aspects of challenges for us, and you talked about the evolutionary challenge, and you said it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility. Can you get into a little bit more about the evolutionary challenges?
So one of the things that I like to study and I like to read about is this idea of the irrational brain. All right, we all think we're sensible, we all think we're smart, and yet we do some dumb stuff. And I'm particularly talking to myself now. So I look back across time and I'm like, why did you do that, Dad? Come on, why did we do that? So we all make these funny, crazy decisions. And actually, many of those are predictable. They're predictably irrational. There's books out now, Predictably Irrational is one, Nudge, Thinking Fast and Slow. We acknowledge we've got effectively two systems in our brain. One that is instinctive and thinks fast, doesn't put too much effort into it, says, oh, that, and quickly reacts. Makes it easy, right? What socks are you going to wear in the morning? Those ones. I don't have to think about it. I'm not going to weigh up the pros and cons of wearing different socks. I'm going to grab that one. How do you have your coffee? Like that, like default thinking, no thinking. Let's just get it done. And then there's the slow brain, which says, I like to think about stuff. It's like, hey, which investment plan should I take? And the fast brain goes, that one is easiest. And it's like, wait, probably not best that you drive this ship right now. Let me slow down and make conscious decisions. But our psychology hasn't really evolved over the years. So, we have to make a lot more decisions, but our wiring is still the same. So we tend to make these sometimes we make rash decisions when we should probably slow down. Sometimes we slow down when we could probably just trust our gut. And then there's other things as well that have kind of become endemic or systemic. And so I remember my grandparents saying, oh, it could be worse, right? This is one of the things that could be worse. Chatting to a friend this morning. And there's this, it's a paradox called the region beta paradox. Just give it the scientific name. And have you ever been in a situation where it's bad, but it's not bad enough to change, right? There's a point where things change over, where we go, enough is enough, right? And it has to change. But earlier this year in one of my competitions, just before I got injured, playing soccer with my brother-in-law, and we're just playing Sunday night. It was very casual, and the ball was there in the middle. I ran over to kick the ball, and somebody else ran over to kick the ball. We kicked it at the same time. But I was kicking it on a Sunday night and he was kicking it, he thinks, in the World Cup final. And he just my knee just got shot. But I didn't think it was that bad. So because it wasn't that bad, what did I do? Man, not very much. I went home, raised it, iced it, did all the things we know we're supposed to do for a day, and then just kind of carried on walking around on it. And surprise, surprise, it didn't get better. But I kept saying it wasn't that bad. Now, if it had been that bad, if it had been pointing different directions or bones sticking out or all sorts of people like that, then what would have happened? I would have gone to the doctor. I would have gone to the doctor, I would have had tests, I would have had scans, I would have said, that's terrible, you need to do these things, I would have had a physio, I'd have had a plan, I've had to do that. I'd probably have reached a lot faster doing that, even though it was a worse injury than I did with my perceptively minor injury. So in theory, there's a continuum. And at some point we cross over to this point where it could be worse to, oh my goodness, this is terrible, I need to do something about it. But this isn't about my knee injury, this is about people's life. So think about jobs. Like people get stuck in jobs where they don't like jobs. Oh, yeah, but it could be worse. My mate's got a terrible job. We're really good at comparing to other situations. Oh, it could be worse. It could be worse. So we never cross over that threshold where we quit and go and do something else. Or we get stuck in relationships where we're like, well, I don't really like it, but I don't really want to be single. It could be worse. I could, just look at what Dave's got going on over there. Poor Dave. So we compare again and we take the pressure off ourselves to create change. Another one with health, right, is health. It's like, oh, I'm a little bit overweight, or my jeans are getting a little bit tight, but it could be worse. I could have a heart attack. And at some point, we're going to cross over that, especially in those situations. And we can either be passive and wait for things to happen, or we can kind of realize that this is just an imaginary point in our brain. It doesn't actually exist. This is the crazy thing, right? It's just we're really good at pushing it away from us anytime it gets close. And this is the thing with people who lose weight, and I've got somebody who I know who's always trying to lose weight, and they do a diet for like 2 months or like 2 minutes, and they lose a kilo, and they're like, oh, I feel good about myself, and they take the entire pressure off. But it could be worse. Could have been that. So this is the idea that, and there's so many of these different psychological elements that just keep us stuck. We just end up staying in the same place, and then we like to stay in the same place. They reinforce it. We get the status quo bias, and then we don't change. And so you can actually say that in theory, the reason you're stuck, if you don't like where your situation is and all your things that are going on, it is a psychological element. It's not necessarily your fault, but if you feel like you should change it, then it is your responsibility.
But how do people get to that place? I think that it's people all say they want change, and yet no one changes, right? And or majority of people don't change. So it's you and I in some ways preaching to the choir, but how do we get people, support people or help people along the continuum to affect change? Because the change really has to be more internally motivated.
There's 3 aspects. So I'm going to go a bit psycho. We're going to nerd out a little bit, Kate. We're going to nerd out. I'm going to try and make it less nerdy, but I can't help it. So there's a model called the theory of planned behavior that explains when people want to do something different than they're not doing it at the moment. Okay, theory of planned behavior. Isaac Ajan. I've probably just absolutely trounced his name, but that's the guy. And he says that the ultimate goal is behavior, and if we want to change behavior, we have to have an intention to change behavior. Okay, that comes first. We have to want to change it, and the 3 things that contribute to intention are our attitudes around the behavior, our social circle, and what they call social norms, and our self-belief, our self-esteem. So let's take smoking. Smoking's the classic one. We can all think about this. But smoking, and my mum smoked for years. She doesn't anymore, so she somehow made the transition. I keep asking her why. Things changed, right? Yeah. So the behavior is smoking. I want to stop smoking. So I have to want to stop smoking. So my attitudes towards smoking have to shift at some point. If I think that smoking is nice and it's a relaxation, I can just take a deep breath, or it's like 5 minutes out of my day where I get to be myself. And then I'm never even going to have the intention to change. I'm never even going to have that. Or, if think about food, it's, but I'm healthy during the week and I'm stressed, and actually like I enjoy eating with my family, and like I like good food and all this kind of things. And we're never going to change. We're never even going to have that intention to want to do something. So getting people to think differently about the behavior so they actually change that want to do it is number 1. So attitudes and thoughts around the behavior, which is why it takes a long time for people to change their ideas around smoking. Like the cigarette packets are covered in pictures of cancer and death and all these kind of things, but somebody else. And that's another thing, is because it's in the distance, our brain deletes it and goes, we'll deal with that. That's tomorrow down's problem. So that's number 1, attitude. Second one is social norms. Okay. So think about this. If you grew up, you're into fitness. So it would probably be safe to say that somewhere around your social circle when you were young, there were other people that were also doing crazy things related to fitness. Maybe they went jogging, or they cycled to work, or did something like that. Would you have people around you that you can remember that were kind of influential? My dad. Yeah. What did he do?
My dad was a Y member for 65 years, even though he had like 9 kids and he had a stressful nonprofit job and didn't have a lot of money. That was his priority. And even if my mom gave him crap about it, or, but that wasn't necessarily true for everyone in my family. I was the only one really that followed my dad like as much out of the 9, but yeah, my dad, I was so grateful.
Yeah. And that's, actually one of the things that I love about bodybuilding. My daughter calls me Daddy Muscle. So I know that I'm planting the right seeds, I think. So she'll be next. Yes. Whatever's coming up. She's going to the Olympics for sure. But our society, our social norms play a huge part. Like the pressures that our peer group and the people around us exert make a difference. So like you said, the wife, is not necessarily complimentary, or your friends don't agree, or your society isn't set up, or your friendship group is, let's say you're trying to earn more money, but all you do is you hang around with people in the bar who work at the factory all day, like in the blue collar. How are you ever going to escape that? Because you start having conversations with them and they're like, oh, who are you? You better than us? Same with fitness, right? It's why you go to the gym all the time. Just come out for a beer. Like, I don't know how many times I've heard that. And they
Oh,
just say,
yes.
I'm sorry, I don't. And so actually being intentional around your peer group and who you spend time with is really important. So I've tried to make friends in the bodybuilding community. Now I'm writing, I'm trying to make friends who are authors and things along those lines. With podcasting, so I'm trying to make friends with podcasters, because who you associate with is going to cause you to level up your game. Like that's the thing is, come back to sword environment. Iron sharpens iron, right? So maybe I should have got 2 swords. But there's this idea. So
You're gonna get one.
I'll get another one.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Yeah. So we want to hang around with people who are going to put a positive pressure on the society. So if you start hanging out with people who are healthier than you, guess what you get? If you start hanging out with people who are richer than you, guess what? Your expectations for your wealth go up and you will get wealthier, right? But we've got to be intentional with who we spend time with. So that's the social norms. And the third part is, do we believe it? Do we believe it? And this for me is the biggest one, right? Is I think we can all think differently and we can all hang around cool people or, change our Instagram feed so we've got full of motivation. But then do we believe we can? And this was for me one of the biggest things. And I sound all confident and talking about it like I'm doing it. And I've done some shows now. But there was a long time before I did my first show that I didn't feel like a bodybuilder. Had no experience, hadn't been on stage, had never done it, was telling a couple people that I was going to do it, but I felt like a fraud all that time. I was weighing every meal. I was waking up in the morning. I was coming downstairs. I was standing on the scale and I was looking at it and it wasn't moving and nothing was happening. And I'm like, oh, is it going to happen? And I didn't have a date in mind. It was just something I said I was going to do. And then one day, something happened. I was like, did the same thing, came down, put the kettle on, went into the bathroom, tried to make myself a little bit lighter, took as many clothes off as you could possibly do, and to make yourself lighter again. Stood on the scales and I looked down, and something wasn't so great. And then I looked up and I caught a glimpse in the mirror, and I was like, "Who's that?"
Wow.
And I can remember it so vividly because I didn't recognize myself. I was like, oh, something's happening. And there's a point in which you start to believe when you're on some crazy journey like this, because there's doubt, imposter syndrome, fake it till you make it. This is where discipline comes in. You got to be disciplined to show up and do the work. But at some point you'll cross over and you'll have this like, oh, I'm on track. And, if you're in business, maybe it's you get that first client that says yes. Or if you're doing a diet like this, it's like you hit that milestone, or there's so many different ways you can do it, but that self-belief thing is what actually will take an intention to the behavior. So really being conscious about reinforcing that and believing in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting thing. And I'm curious about where the science is going to go on this topic in particular, because I think it's more than a self-belief. I think it's more like, I believe I'm worth more than this. And sometimes that's enough belief that I'm worth more than this. Yes. I am here for more than this. I don't know what it is. Yeah. So I would say self-belief, self-will, and self-determination are equally key. And I think Alex Hormozi said something interesting recently. And I think that some of these things that I'm going to be talking about on my podcast aren't going to go over super well, because I don't believe that we're ever going to be necessarily like, oh, I'm worthy. I feel 100% worthy to find this perfect relationship, or I'm worthy now of having this great job, or I'm like that. All of a sudden, the worthy fairy is going to come and ding you on your head. Yeah. It's not, because your future self, you don't know who your future self is. You don't know who that person is. You don't know they're you. But you don't know you and what you're capable of right now. But you do have to know that there's more than this. And sometimes it's your future self is the one that's worthy.
I love Alex Hormozi. I think some of his stuff is brilliant. I've read most of his content and I've seen all of his videos and all this.
So what do you think about that? Because I think it's an important conversation to have. Because I think the science is shifting, and I think it will continue to shift, because I think in some ways we have to hijack this. I have to do all this self-work before I can do this. And I think the self-work and the social work have to go together. I really, truly do believe so.
So I've been studying mental toughness, which is the model that I think is really useful. And it's a scientific model, it's 8 components. And one thing that I found is you cannot build mental toughness without revealing mental toughness. You can't reveal whether you've got it without building it. So for example, with discipline, you don't know you've got it until you challenge yourself to see if you've got it. Like that's the only way. So you build it and reveal it at the same time. And this is like you say, is a lot of people wait until, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Just do it. Just do it. And my favorite quote on this is there's a lot of people that say, oh, what would you dare to do if you knew you couldn't fail? I think that's wrong because it sets people up for aspirations of doing these amazing grand things that are never going to come off, right? Seth Godin says this, what would you dare to do that if you knew you would fail, but you would do it anyway? And I think this is, and come back to Alex, this is what we've got to do. We've got to find something that we absolutely love, that we believe in, and we've got to go after it. And whether we win or not, we've got to keep going after it. And this is the thing. Anytime we set up a big goal like this, let's say, for me, I'm going to write my third book. It'll be second personal development one. I still don't necessarily feel like an author. I can't really go around calling myself an author. You called me one at the beginning. I'm like, yeah, I'll go with it. I'm like, whatever. But I don't feel like it inside. Who gives a crap, right? Because who I am today is a result of all the decisions and experiences that I've had up to today. So I can say, like, this is me. But if I want to evolve, then I can't be attached to that person. Like, I've got to make peace with the idiot stuff that he's done. I've got to love the things that he's built on, but I've got to let go of it if I'm going to get to that next level. And that's what imposter syndrome is. Imposter syndrome is just desperately holding on to the things that we know for certain, rather than embracing the fear of failure, the messing stuff up, the looking dumb, the playing it, like all the things, my first show, like from a bodybuilder said, I have no idea. But you do these things as practice runs so that when you get to the big show, it's like, oh, I've been here before. That's what experience is. And Alex Hormozy says, I'm pretty sure it's something like the reason he can be so confident is because he's got the experience to back it up. He's not talking hypothetically. He's talking from experience, the things that he's done. That's what gives him confidence. I really like that aspect. So I don't talk as much about some of the things I'm doing because of him, because it's like, just go and do it.
I 100% agree on that. It's so powerful. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. So, and can you just talk a little bit more, and particularly how you're relating this to your new book, which I love the title, which is Unstuck, and you're looking to launch that in the early part of 2025. And I'm super pumped about that. And we'll definitely be working together in our book launches. My book is The Agility Mindset. So we have those to share, our book launches together. How wonderful. If you don't mind just talking a little bit more about mental toughness and the mind and heart set as we are able and capable to move through or getting unstuck.
So I think in general, let's go back 2 years, and I was in a job and it was a good job and it allowed me to provide for my family and all those things, but it wasn't the most fulfilling. In fact, it was pretty terrible. And a lot of people would say it's toxic. Like I would call it toxic now because I'm detached from it. At the time, it was like really toxic. And this was actually, I remember talking about the gym. This time I needed the gym the most. All right. And I would just have to go to the gym just to get some sanity. I can remember texting my buddy going, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I went to the gym and I just said, if I ever say that again, just tell me to go to the gym. Now shut up.
Yeah, totally.
And so I had this toxic environment. And actually, I figured out that the human body and human mind is pretty resilient. Like resilience for me is this ability to take the punches and keep rolling, like Rocky. It's just like, hey, yo, Adrian, bam, get punched in the face. Not about how hard you get hit. And that kind of idea is that we can just keep getting up. But at what point does that turn around? That was the question for me. At what point does it turn around? And how do people who go through these kind of things able to go from being receptive or reactive as like a more like resilient mindset to being in control? And so this is where I was searching. And for me, mental toughness is got some aspects in it that takes resilience, but adds some confidence and allows you to take control. So regardless of what's going on in our world, craziness, all of those things, first thing is we need to have a purpose. We need to have a goal. We need to have a direction. And most people, and this is kind of this from the first book, right? From the first book, most people get stuck in what we call a trap of average. It's like we were talking about earlier. You're stuck. It's like, oh, I'm just stuck here. I'm going to carry on. We're going to do default. I'm going to do Tuesday the same as Monday because I can't be bothered to think. And there's too much other stuff going on. And, it's not that important. It could be worse. And we could just kind of get to this point. And so we let go of purpose. We let go of dreaming. We don't think that anything's bigger. We might try and get a promotion or like an extra tiny little bit, but we never really kind of push the boundary. And so I think that's the first point, is that most people need to learn to dream again. And, as we get older, we tend to become a little bit more realistic in our expectations. So the first thing we need to do is change that expectation and kind of let go of that. In Unstuck, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can talk about what we do want not what we don't want. It's really easy to say, well, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. But how do we flip that around? How do we reframe it in position to find out what we do want? When our brain is really kind of, it's like, well, what if we fail there? Or what if we don't like that? Or what if we get embarrassed? So it's really good at kind of hiding stuff away. So that's a fun chapter I was researching the other day and I'm looking forward to writing. This is the idea. So as soon as we set that goal, we're going to have imposter syndrome. Just got to show up. This is what discipline is. Discipline is doing those things like Alex Hormozy was talking about. You don't want to go to the gym every day. Like I love it when I get there, but getting to the gym is still hard work. And I go at 5:30 in the morning. My alarm goes off. It's dark. I haven't had coffee. It's cold. It's all of those things. Sometimes it's raining. I'm looking outside and I'm like, Dan, why don't you just have a break? That little voice is still there all the time. And if I didn't have a goal, then I'd let it get to me. And I'd be like, yeah, you know what? I'll just take it off today. And so showing up, being disciplined and doing the things that we need to do. Like today, I'm going to have to write 1,000 words. Whether they're good words or bad words, it doesn't matter. I'm going to write 1,000 words. I know what they're going to be. I know some of them, but I need to take that time to get them out of me if I'm going to call myself an author. Right. So we show up, we've got to do things every day. And that's what discipline is. And that was, I think for me, was the biggest question mark about, do I have what it takes to become a bodybuilder? I knew I could do the lifting, but did I have the discipline in the kitchen and all the other areas that really kind of set you apart? And then the last one, I think, which is, again, you said something controversial. I think this is controversial, is with the kind of life hack, I want it now, I want it fast, expedite mentality, is you actually got to work for this. I remember as a kid thinking there was a shortcut to everything. Oh man, I'm smart, I'm cool, I can figure this out. I don't need to put any hours. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And it's not from a stupidity perspective. It's from a skill development perspective. It's from an understanding perspective. It's from a nuanced perspective. And let me tell you what, a friend of mine asked me, so I entered the UK international competition last year for bodybuilding. It was like the end of the season. I've been dieting for ages. I was skinny, I was tired, I was all those things. Stepped on stage with some of the best athletes in Europe. And I came, I think, sixth. I'd say. They don't place like outside top 5, but I think I was sixth based on call out. And I saw my friends afterwards and they said, did you want to win? And this is a buddy of mine. We played football together. He was my wide receiver. I was his quarterback. We're super competitive, right? Now we're older, so we actually compete in Dungeons and Dragons. That's another entire different side of my life that we'll talk about another time. But he asked me this question. He said, did I want to win? And the answer was obviously yes. Like nobody goes into these things not wanting to win. But I had a realization that I couldn't win. Not that I didn't want to, but I couldn't because I hadn't done the work. I hadn't done the work that these other athletes had done over years and years of competing. This is like my first, second half of a season. And I'm in there. I'm in the mix. But I haven't done the work that these guys have done. I don't get to call myself the same level as those guys because I'm not there. Doesn't mean I don't deserve to be there. But it was an interesting question. Did you want to win? And it was like, I've got work to do. And I think this is what a lot of people do is they shy away from the work. They shy away from the work because they want to get things faster, like ChatGPT. Like I could write my book with ChatGPT, but it wouldn't be my book. It would just be some like AI Terminator type thrown out piece of loads of words. Some of the words might be in the same order, but it wouldn't have the essence. And so this is what people got to do. And, bodybuilding, fitness is the perfect thing. You can work smart. You can have all these fancy machines and stuff like that. Ones with the crazy angles and the handles and the this, that, and the other cables and the lights that flash and count how many stuff you do. You got to lift it. You got to move it. And so whatever your goal is, like there's an element. Just go and work. And this is where, just final note on this is where sacrifice comes in because there's no such thing as balance. There is no such thing as balance. You can't be a bodybuilder and eat cake. You can't have this. And everyone asks Richard Branson, do you have like work-life balance? He's like, yeah, of course I do. I live on an island. I have jets and yachts and jet skis and I do ballooning and crazy stuff like that. I have family. Yeah, you do now. But when you were in the grind, did you have work-life balance? And the answer was no. And so people always ask these like super successful people, do you have work-life balance? The answer is yes. But during, no. There's no balance. So what are you prepared to give up? What are you prepared to sacrifice in order to have that dream? You got to give something up. And the more you give up, the more you say no to, the more energy you'll have to say yes to the things that are really important.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think one of the main things I heard from you too, in that is, there is going to be suffering and you have to be at one with the suffering. And I think I competed in bikini for 17 years, just a lot of years. And it wasn't ever about me. And I think that that's the interesting piece is that if you think you're going to be motivated to do it for you, it's not going to be nearly as rewarding. I'm here to inspire other people to live courageously. And it's interesting being through this hurricane and everyone's pissed at me because why didn't you leave? It's like, I'm a helper. I'm in a building that's safe, but I'm here to serve. So this isn't about Katie getting away and escaping so that I'm safe. I don't play a safe game. I play a game to serve, and you can't be safe and serve necessarily at the same time. You just can't. And I'm just going to be honest. I think I got fired up over this because I see the polarization that's happening politically with this stuff. And I'm saying things and I'm having people message me and saying, how dare you say that? You know, just following some party line. I'm like, I'm on neither party line. I'm here to serve the people. I'm here for the people.
Voice of common sense.
Yeah. And Gandhi was a warrior. He was a war strategist. I hate to tell you people, he was a strategist. He maybe have chose pacifism as his method of war, of strategy, his war strategy, but he had a strategy to win for people. And when you represent on stage, you're not just doing it for you, and you're doing it to inspire others. Yeah.
The reason I do it is I'm a psychologist. I'm a behavioral scientist, and I don't want to talk about books. I want to talk about stories, and I want to say, you know, this is what the book says, this is what it's like in real life. And the more I can do that, the more I can challenge myself to test the limits, the more believable I can be, and then the better teacher I am.
So how does that play out for you as far as your sense of self-efficacy, I guess?
I still have imposter syndrome. I'm still new in this game. I haven't figured out how to have massive levels of confidence. Do I think I ever will? Don't know. Like, does it ever come? Probably not. I get comfortable. I get stuck. And I'm like, Dan, you're trying to teach people how to get unstuck. Go figure it out. It's like that kind of thing. I coach, and a lot of people come to me with the problems. I'm like, and I think actually Gandhi was this, or was it Gandhi or Buddha? One of the two says, oh, I need to quit sugar. Like, can you give me some advice? He says, come back in 4 weeks. And they're like, we're to come back in 4 weeks. Like, oh, what do I need to come back now? It's like, well, I had to figure it out myself before I can tell you what to do. It's that kind of thing, right? Is we can't teach without having the experience. So I think I was chatting to somebody today, who are my books for? And I said, the more you can write a book for an individual, the better. And the books that I write are for me just before the journey, which sounds very selfish. It's the book I wish I'd read when I was in my situation. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. It makes me believe my words, and then they're more powerful.
And so who do you feel that you're here to serve, Dan?
It's a good question. And this is the whole niching point of any marketing consultant. Dan, you need to niche yourself.
I think that's bullshit, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I think I have a general hatred of the status quo, of people settling, of people accepting their situation, of people just getting stuck in this trap of average. I think we should all challenge ourselves. I think we should do things. It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be like our life is perfect. We have to have jobs. We have to have relationships. These things serve us in a lot of cases. But we also want to explore life, and we want to live our fullest. And this is what I don't want to do, and I don't want anyone to do, is to get to the end of their life and just go, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I tried it. And yet we do that. We have excuses for why we don't do things. And so I think that's it. My goal is to help people get unstuck, drop the excuses, and really go and see what they're capable of. And I think the idea is bite off more than you can chew, and then chew it anyway.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Keep chewing. Yeah. So I love it. You said that you have a hatred of the status quo.
Yeah.
That people settling. Does that piss you off?
I have to question it. Yeah. I'm forced to question it. I don't know why, but it's like, we've always done it that way. Yeah, but why? Yeah, but why?
I remember reading an article, and I bring this up often. It was in like Parade magazine or something. And it was like, if you're having trouble with your teenager and and you're trying to get them like to figure out what it is that they want, it's like, ask them what pisses them off. Yeah. And sometimes they're going to give you a list. I even do this as a coach. People are like, I'm sick of this. They did this. I'm sick of that. And I'll be like, what else? What else you feeling? What else? And I'll take I'll have them keep going with the list. You hate that? Yeah. Well, that's, and I want them to get all in the emotion. Like, give it to me. Yep. I want it all, especially with the guys. And I'm like, give it all, give it all. And then I'm like, okay, so what you're telling me is you want to have more peace in your life. You want to have more. So I'll just turn it around onto the positive. And they're like, yeah. So don't be afraid of the places. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is that to all the viewers and listeners, don't be afraid of the places that you actually have emotion around. And that's why I said, because this was the strongest thing you said in this whole conversation, is you have a hatred of the status quo. I'm like, oh, Dan, go for it, right? And then when I asked you it, you were like, no, it's just more, and you brought it to thought. And so I thought, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Dan's not going to own that actually it pisses him off that people settle. I'm like, okay, I see. You're not ready to own that yet. But
But this is what the book's about, right? So the
yeah.
first one, transformation. Next one, unstuck, is like, come on in. Why are you doing it? Why are you settling? Yeah, it's good fun. Still trying to figure it out myself, still elements. And I'm 45 years old now. Wish I'd learned this stuff a little bit longer ago. But yeah, we're capable of more. And there's two ways of thinking about it. Like, I love what you did there is take everything that annoys people and flip it and say, okay, well, what do you want? The challenge that we've got at that point, and this is what I'm figuring out for the second book, is we have an unlimited list of things that we could do. And in psychology, again, let's come back to it, there's this paradox of choice, is that when we have so much choice, when we have freedom to choose everything, we don't choose anything. And actually, by limiting our options, we actually create more behavior and more decision than by having limitless options. The original science was done around jams in the supermarket, like, those kind of things, like, oh, which jam do you want? You got loads. It's like, I'm not going to buy any because we have this fear of missing out. And so what people can do is do anything. And there's a lot of work around habits and small changes and stuff right now that is perfect. So day one, if you hate a whole bunch of stuff and you're frustrated and you're feeling stuck and all those things, do something, do anything that is radically different, that is in alignment with some of those things that you hate, but the opposite way. So it's like, if you don't like freedom, I feel like I'm just stuck, or was it you want freedom? I feel I'm stuck on all these things. Then you know what? Go to a Buddhist retreat for a day and just sit there in silence and think. It doesn't have to be the right answer. This is it. It's not going to be right, but it frames your brain in a way of thinking, oh, okay, I don't have to resist everything all the time. I can do anything. And it might not work, but it might. So you're going to try it and then try something else and try something else. And just what we're going to find is if we move. And I started this bodybuilding journey, 3-4 years ago, something? I can't remember how long now. It feels like a lifetime, but also just not very long. I'm still excited about it every single day. But if I'd waited 4 years to get started, I'd still have another 4 years to get to where I'm going. So this is the thing, just start. Find something that, you think could be interesting, that could be cool, that's going to challenge you to get outside your comfort zone and do it. Don't be attached. Don't set it as like, I want to be the world champion this. No, you don't have to do that. Just go and explore it and see what you like. And then gradually the picture becomes clearer.
That's so good. I love that. Make sure you put that in the book.
Oh, yeah.
So I have one more question for you. I'd love your insight on this. I think that what happened, and maybe this was true for you in your work where you felt like it was soul sucking, is that we think the things that we should be doing in life are the things that we're naturally good at. And which is sort of the catch-22, isn't it? That the things that we really want, that we're called here, maybe aren't going to be the easy thing. They're going to be the harder thing. And I talk about that quite frequently because I'm in general an extraordinarily positive person. I laugh all the time, even when things are intense. And, and when my son passed away, I was like, wow, how am I going to frame this out based on my personality and the way I actually live my life? And I was like, well, God and I will figure it out. And I think that was true, that I didn't want to be the person that talked about suicide. And yet I was put in the position to talk about the darkest things. And yet my job is to bring light to dark places. And I'm more deeply committed to that than ever, which is just bizarre, right? So what would you say about that full concept of working through maybe the things that you think you should do because either you were told that you were naturally good at, but that's really not why you're here? How do we break through that from your perspective in your work?
There's no such thing as naturally good at anything. Fact. There's only development and learning of skill. And we have a capacity, we have a cap we call talent. So we can be naturally affinitive at something like, can be good at things. For example, I'm never going to be a pianist. Like if you look at these stumpy little fingers, I'm not designed to be a pianist. I'm not going to be in the NBA. Any of those things. Like I have caps on what I can and cannot do. But also I'm not interested in piano. So I would never get good at piano because I'm not interested in it. If I'm interested in it and I'm prepared to put some work into it, then I'll get good. Yeah. And this is the thing. So, you're calling to shining light on dark stuff, which I like. We all have a dark side. We've all been there. And whether we own it or not, it's there. And so we can have a conversation about that sometime. But that's of interest to you. And so you'll pursue that whether you're good at it or not. And I guarantee the first time you talked or even thought about speaking to others about suicide, you didn't know what words to use. You didn't know how to control your emotions. You didn't know the message that you wanted to leave. You didn't know how they were going to react. You didn't know any of those things, but you did it. You did it. Whether it was a conversation just with yourself or with a single individual or whatever it was, you did it. And you persisted having that conversation behind closed doors, figuring things out, reading around it, because you knew that this was something that your heart and soul, or however philosophical we want to get to, needed to do. And so coming back to that quote from Seth Godin, what would you dare to do if you knew you would fail, but you would do it anyway? This is one of those things for you. This is now part of your mission and who you are. And so this is what people need to figure out, is not what am I good at? I'm good at this, but the reason I'm good at it is because I followed that path, because my parents told me I had to go to school, and then somebody said I had to get a job, and my family did this. And so I went into the family career, and I'm like now 45 years old, and actually I don't like where I am. I don't feel like this person. This is not my life. Where am I? Yeah. I'll go, well, what do you want to do? What are you called to do? It doesn't mean you have to quit your job.
We're not saying that.
we like paying bills, all right? We like to pay bills, but imagine that I find that passion. Imagine now if I went and volunteered at a local club or spoke to people, or, my dad used to go to the prison and just talk to people there and talk about their experiences. There's so many opportunities to volunteer, to contribute, to do things. And it doesn't have to be your career. It doesn't have to be the way you make money. I got this pro card behind me, but am I going to be a pro bodybuilder? I'm pro level, but that's not my career. I don't want to have a career in bodybuilding. I've been in fitness and I love it, and I respect everyone who's in it. And maybe I will compete. I don't know at pro level, but my passion is telling stories. Like, my passion is figuring out this brain thing, which is why I can't stop doing it, even though I haven't figured it out. Even though my writing is not as good as it could potentially be, I'm going to still do this thing because there's something inside me that gets excited. And what's the quote? It's like, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and follow that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. That's my answer to it. Is talent is a cap on skill. We're not naturally good at anything. And actually, if we go into the book, and I'm going to talk about this very quickly, there's a guy and he did an experiment. He wrote a book or kind of white paper called How to Raise a Genius. Laszlo Polgar is his name. He's a Hungarian guy, and he's a mathematician and chess expert. And he had 3 girls. He applied on the internet. So, does anyone want to run this experiment? We're going to have some kids. We're going to turn them into geniuses. Somebody replied, yes, that sounds like a great idea. I love the internet. There's people there. So they had 3 girls, right? And from a very young age, he taught them maths, science, language, logic, all of these things. And one of the things he taught was chess. And the reason he taught chess is because apparently it's very easy to quantify how good you are at chess. Okay. And chess is all about nuance of movement. So you have 3 girls, and up until 3, he kind of did general training. Up until 6, he did intro training. And then he got them the world's best coaches and trainers and people around this idea of chess. Fast forward, 3 daughters. One is widely considered the best female chess champion the world has ever seen. Second one is actually, she's the youngest. The third one is the second best chess champion the world has ever seen from a field perspective. Third one simply represented Hungary at the World Championships of chess. And the idea is this: his findings are general development up until the age of 3. Specific development starts before 6, and then continuous practice after that. And that is how you raise a genius. So for me as a dad with a very energetic 4-year-old, so far, what has she done? Gymnastics, she got good at. She was in Prague doing this. Soccer, football, team sport, agility, dynamicism, swimming. We do a lot of athletic work. She's now doing dance and kind of choreography and all those kind of things. She's getting a rounded athletic base before she starts on whatever specific sport she wants, because I know she needs to start early. Like, we're also doing academics. She's in school, she's in kindergarten. You can probably hear her just in the distance, like screaming, because there's no such thing as somebody who's good at it. They've just simply put in, the research, 10,000 hours of work. But you got to love something a lot to do 10,000 hours. You got to really find something inside that calls you to do that. Otherwise, you're just never going to go the distance.
So good. That's great information. So yeah, that's so good. So just a couple things. Anything that you want the viewers and listeners to take away from today would be my first question.
Okay. So the first one is question the status quo. I think, based on what you're saying, you hate status quo, own it. All right. Okay, cool. Own it. So what is it that you did today that you also did yesterday that you probably will do tomorrow that you don't need to do necessarily, or you could do differently? Like, what are the habits and the patterns that you've gotten into that are not necessarily serving your life or serving the way you feel about your life? Don't do anything drastic, but just question, why do you do it that way? Like, why do you have your coffee that way? Like, Starbucks ruined coffee for me when they started putting calories on. I'm like, oh, great. So something external can come in and give you some insight, but just ask yourself why you do that. Why do you wake up at whatever time you wake up? And why do you feel the way? What do you have before bed? Why do you have that drink before bed? Why do you have that breakfast cereal? You have just dumb, crazy stuff like this. Just ask the question and then say, okay, well, if I was going to do something different, what could it be? And how could it be more aligned? So I think that's that. The second one would be dream a little bit bigger. Like, what are those things you want to do? Or what are those things that you kind of keep saying to yourself that you're going to do? and just reconnect, because the voice goes quiet after a while. It's still there. It just gives you the occasional little nudge when you're doing something like unsuspecting. It's like, hey, we could do that thing. So listen for a bit and just remember what some of your dreams are. And then I guess on that is take the first step. Like the first step is the hardest. The first step, getting off the sofa, going to the gym is the hardest thing. Yeah, it's always the hardest thing. Apply for that job. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't get it. Like, just go and do it. Or, pick up that pencil and start drawing. Just nobody needs to see it. Screw it up, throw it in the bin, but you did it. You did it. So what is the smallest element of work that you can do that's going to take you one step closer to where you're going to be? You don't know where you're going to be, but what's that one step you can take today and do step one? Because step two will be a lot easier.
So good. Excellent. And then where can people find you?
Come find me at danstorey.com. So my website is where you'll see me and my podcast and my ramblings and kind of maybe some of the updates on what I'm doing from a bodybuilding perspective. You'll see my books on there and things as well. You can also find a book on Amazon. Amazon do a phenomenal job on self-publishing. So yeah, check out Dan Storey or Personal Transformation Blueprint on Amazon. And yeah, other than that, stay tuned into your podcast and maybe we'll do another one. And I think we're gonna have to have a flip conversation, Kate, as well. I need to dive into that dark side a little bit. That dark side sounds like fun.
I know, we will. Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to that. And Dan, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your realness and for your ability to share your journey of not knowing and leaning into what it means to be a man, taking the risk and speaking truth. We need more people like you, more men like you that are willing to stand in for people, because that's basically what I see you doing. It takes great courage to be standing on stage in a bathing suit and to have all the people like, because there's judgment around it. There's a lot of judgment. And it's very interesting foray. I just want to thank you too for the knowledge that you shared and the way you share it, like the 3 hurdles and those types of things. It gives us context to how we can look at our lives and make choices in bite-sized ways. So just thanks a lot.
No, you're welcome. I have to say, I have to thank my sister. I used to be in the world of personal development seminars and spend my life in like motivational places, like, yay, every weekend. And I remember something really terrible happened in my life because I didn't get unstuck. And I remember lying on my bed and just being absolutely miserable and in tears. And I called my sister and we had a conversation. And she said, that's the first time you've ever spoken to me. Like realistically, without filters. And it changed our relationship. So I think there is a pressure on men and women, everyone in general, to put a mask on. I think the more we can take that mask off, the easier it is to connect. Then we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect. And the hurdles that I talk about in the book, everyone goes through them. And I think that if everyone goes through them, we should but nobody ever talks about it. It's like, let's just give ourselves a break, right? Because it's not easy being human. It's not easy having this life. Like, we want to do things, stuff gets in the way, our brain plays tricks on us and does all those things. So just try and take it a little bit easy, give yourself a break, but doesn't mean you don't have to kind of work at it. So have fun in whatever journey you're doing, and yeah, we'll see you at the end.
And lift weights.
Yes, 100%. Get some pre-workout. Up your protein intake.
That too. Yeah, and keep questioning the status quo.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for all the viewers and listeners for tuning in to Master Your Life. I'm Kate McKay, and I'm so grateful for your reach outs, your shares. And Dan, thanks again for being part of our playtime today. I really appreciate it. Take care, everyone. Until next time, stay strong, keep questioning that status quo, and lean into those places that are uncomfortable. We'll see you next time.